Today we are going to look at the new Qidi offering, the Plus 4, and why it is taking everything from the Q1 Pro and smacking the competition in the face with all their new upgrades. They made it bigger, they made it hotter, and I'm going to tell you all about it. Whew, that was a weird feeling. Now, because this box is massive and overweight, just like me, I have my lovely assistant right over there and she's going to help me put this thing on the table. So this is a box. It is actually pretty heavy. It is about 32 kilograms. Thank you, honey. As you can see, this is a lot bigger than the Q1 Pro. The internal build volume is about 305 by 305 by 280, if I'm not mistaken. The hot end is capable of delivering 370 degrees. It has a ceramic throat hot end thingy. It is actually capable of heating up to 65 degrees Celsius. It has 9mm belt. It has all the bells and whistles, even a filament cutter. Now, the only thing that I have seen from the little tease that Qidi placed on the interwraps is that everybody is looking for some kind of an AMS system, of a multi-material system. I have to disappoint you, the Qidi Plus 4 is not coming with a multi-material system and they are not planning right away to have one. And while that statement of the AMS is totally true, they did admit that they are planning an AMS system for 2025. If you stick around long enough, you will see that this printer is fully capable of some AMS color changing stuff. And I had a last minute price update that this printer is actually going to cost you $799. Now, that being said, like I said, the AMS system is only planned for 2025 and I am of the opinion that I'm only going to review it like it is, without color changing, and everything that they are going to promise we have to take with a bucket of salt. So first of all, we are going to look at the packaging, because this is not a light printer. It is about 32 kilograms, so the packaging will have to be up to snuff in order to survive the brutal shipments. Here we have the first layer. We have our included USB stick, and then right over here, this looks like a massive slab of glass. It is nicely protected in some styrofoam, so we are going to look at the rest of the printer first. The printer is nicely protected with all these foam panels. So there is a little sticker right here on top, and it is saying that we have some carry handles. And yep, we have some carry handles. So it is actually maybe better that we put it back on the ground. Oh, I'm grabbing the handles. Here we have it. The first look of the Qidi Plus 4. And then at the bottom of the box we can find two more pieces. This is probably to assemble it, and some spare parts, I think. Oh my god, guys, if this thing is going to get anywhere near the $700 mark, I don't know about you guys, but yeah, Bamboo, you are going to have a rough time, because this is looking amazing. So unlike the pictures, I can already see that the paneling that we can see on the sides, we have a combination of metal and plastic paneling. It looks actually pretty nice, a lot better than we could see on the Qidi Q1 Pro, and the X-Max 3 also looks very space agey. I have to say, this one is looking really neat. This printer comes with a user manual and a quick start guide, and probably the quick start guide is going to guide you into everything you will need to do to make this printer up and running. So I'm going to do a little montage, and when I'm ready, I'm going to get right back to you guys.
Hey, lately there ain't been no competition for the player. Working all day long, this repetition got my weight up. Pumping like a piston, I can hear him yelling, wait up. Whole world I've been lifting, plot is thickening, I stay up. You don't know what it cost me. Now I'm chilling in the penthouse, living lofty. Pray before you cross me, shut up while I'm talking. While I run up stocks, you all on my IG stalking. Man, get out my face, keep on stepping to a king. Yo, you bound to catch a fin. Hope you live to see tomorrow. It ain't had to be that way. Go ahead and try to plead your case. I'm just trying to feed a face. Got my family and my crew. I'm just trying to keep it straight. Name your price and we inflated. We came here from out of state. Landlord and this eviction got you feeling out of place. Way back was poverty stricken. Now I kick it with the grapes. Call it what you want to call it, but I know it's.
And the finishing touch, the USB right here in the back. And oh my god, this is looking absolutely amazing. This is a first look. This is not a review at all, because I get way too excited with my first looks. So if you want to see the real review and how this thing is actually working, then you will have to wait a few weeks or months for me to do some more testing and to see what the actual real problems are. But we are going to go over all the features. I'm going to tell you what we can all do with this thing. And if there is going to be an AMS, I'm going to call it right now. Bamboo, your time is done. So the first thing we can notice is that the door is actually pretty resistive. We cannot just slam the door shut. So Uncle Jesse, if you are watching, this printer is pretty safe for you. Then the top panel of this printer is also a massive piece of glass. So they completely ditched the polycarbonate we could see on the Q1 Pro. This is only using glass. There are some slots right over here. And the reason for that is that right over here and right over here, we have actual carry handles so you can lift this printer from wherever you are putting it. Then on the inside, we can see that we have a double textured plate, just like in the Q1 Pro. It is probably just completely the same. But this time, when you are putting your sheet into the printer, we have actual good stops right over here and here, so it is not a fight to put in your build plate. When we look at the left, you would say this is your typical blower cooling fan. Well, it isn't. This is the heater, and like you can see, they made a lot of changes to make it a lot more safe than the Q1 Pro. We have a massive blower fan, and there is a heater element right behind this cover, and there is no way for your fingers to reach in it and maybe get shocked because it is an AC heater or all of that. So this is already a massive update from the Q1 Pro, and it looks to be a lot safer. And then on the right side, we can see we have a massive blower fan, and this is your part cooling fan or your secondary part cooling fan. And really weird to see is that the blower fan right over here is actually blowing through the mounting system for this linear rail. So there is a hole right over here for the air to pass through. So it looks like this mount is a little bit in the way of the cooling part fan, but I don't think it's going to be a massive issue. We have a lot of space for the air to escape. Then right here in the back, we can see some things have changed comparing to the Q1 Pro. We still have this little chute thingy right over here, and the Q1 Pro, it was for the brush to move. This time it looks like it is for the poop shooting for the AMS we don't have right now. Then we have a silicone pad for the nozzle to wipe on, and then we have this thing right over here. No clue what it is, but I guess we will find out. And then this right here is going to be your extraction fan, and when we remove the cover, we can see there is a bag in it, and this has some activated carbon in it. This is going to be great to keep out the smells when it is going to vent out right over here. We can see that there is a fan sitting right in the back. And then right over here, we can see we have our tangle sensor. This is going to be very useful if there is something wrong with your spool and your filament is getting caught. Then this part right over here is going to get pressed in, and it is going to signal the printer that there is something wrong with your filament. Then we also can see that the print head is pretty massive. It is a lot bigger than the Q1 Pro, and that is because right over here we have something that is going to be called a filament cutter. We can also see that these belts are actually pretty massive. Not sure if this is going to benefit the printer in speed. To remove the cover, we have to lift it up, and then we can pull it off in the front like this. And now you can see that this print head is absolutely massive. It is super complex. We can see we have a runout sensor. So there is a little wheel right over here that is going to measure if there is filament passing. So it is the same as the Q1 Pro. Then when we drop down, we have our extrusion system, and right over here, this little lever is going to be your filament cutter. Right now, it looks like this isn't an automated system. It is just manual because the knob is sticking out of the cover. Then we can also see that the complete heater block and nozzle system looks to be very similar to the Q1 Pro. Then we have our fan to cool the heat block, and right here on the side we have our magnetic probe. Then when we have a quick look at the screen, we can see they are greeting us with the initial setup. So I'm going to put it in English. It also really looks like this is very high detail. This is a high definition screen. For sure, they were not lying. This is looking great so far. So we can see that it is actually showing you everything you have to do in order to make sure that you are able to print with this machine. It is prompting us to say you have to remove the ties, and I have to say that the resolution of the screen is very nice. It is very detailed. We can absolutely see what we have to do right here. We have removed the ties. We have removed all the bolts. Now it is prompting us that it is going to move the platform. The platform right now is right there on the bottom, so we are going to push next and see what is going to happen. One thing I also notice is this system is super quiet. It is really hard to hear anything. And the filament they provided for you to do your first test print is going to be PLA Rapido Black. This is absolutely a joke amount of filament. This is pretty much useless. You better buy a spool with the machine if you want to do your first prints. So right here on the side there is a little hole, and you get a little PTFE tube to put in this thing right over here. But because I have this beautiful thing sitting around, this is the Polymaker Poly Dryer system, I'm going to set this up to the machine so I can just test it out this way. Pretty cool. I was complaining about this massive PTFE tubing. Well, apparently this PTFE tubing just slides over the regular PTFE tubing. So right now I have a completely closed system. So we can see we have a few tabs over here. We have home, these are the basic heating functions. Then we have control, this is absolutely massive. Look at all the options we have. This is a lot better than the Q1 Pro. We have documents on the USB, there are some files to test out. Then we have the calibrate function, this is probably the first thing we are going to do. And then we have the set button, and here we can change our language. We have network, system messages, check for updates, and then we have the tab more to restore the functions and all of that. So we are going to start with our network. We can also see there is a port in the back to put in your regular Ethernet cable, so you can do it completely wired if you want. We have successfully connected to the Wi-Fi. We can also see that the screen is actually pretty easy to use. Everything is very clear to see. I'm really happy with what I see right now. A cool little feature I found out is that the side paneling actually has some foam. This is probably to do some insulation and noise cancelling. And on the other side we can see the same thing. We can also see that it is backed with foam. Then I'm going to take my stick of truth, because there is one thing I have found that seems to be a little bit more concerning. There is some kind of a stud right over here. And this right here is the cable of the heated bed. And this cable is very easily to put on top of that bolt. And guess what's going to happen when this bed is going to drop? The cable is going to hang right here on that bolt. If we look from the side, there is actually nothing sitting over here. But when we look at the inside, it is pretty clear that right over here we have our cable hanging over that bolt. And you can see what I mean, the cable is hanging behind that stud. Okay, so I have rearranged this cable to be a bit more downwards, and now it's no longer grabbing on that stud right over here. Not sure why it's there, but yeah. Okay, so we have logged into the portal of Fluid using the IP address provided by the printer, and we can see that we have a nice webcam. The quality is actually pretty decent. Not only that, we can also see that the angle of the camera and the printer is super great. We can finally see what's happening on the build plate. Normally you get some kind of a side view and you're not really sure what's going on. Now the more angled look of this camera is pretty neat. Also, one thing I did is enable the time-lapse function and the auto rendering, so right now it should be able to do any kind of time-lapse of what we are going to print, which is what we are going to do after we have done the calibration. So I'm going to do first the calibrations. I will circle back to let you know how that went, and then we are going to do our first benchy. So this was a 60-minute benchy printed with the Sunlu PLA 2.0, I think it's called. We can see it definitely struggled a little bit right here on the back side of the hull, but this is not a bad looking benchy. We can also see there is a little bit of stringing right over here, so I think we could do some more tuning, but for a first benchy, this is not too bad. Now the cooling capabilities seems to be up to snuff. We have a massive blower fan on the back side of the Qidi printhead, and on this side over there we have another massive printhead. The cooling doesn't seem to be a problem. We can also see it in the benchy. Yeah, everything seems to be perfectly fine. I'm going to do some more prints with carbon fiber. I'm going to take a TPU one, and I think we are also going to do some ABS, obviously. And when that's all done, I'm going to get right back to you and say what I think about it. So we're back, and it's a little bit of a good news, bad news show, because the printer is down at the moment because of two reasons, and I'm going to tell you all about it. So first of all, I have noticed that I had some trouble printing my filaments. We know that the Qidi Q1 Pro was absolutely not an issue. This is a print from the X Plus 4, and we can see a huge amount of stringing. We just see generally a pretty poor performance of this printer. We could also see it in this piece of PLA. We broke one of the tabs off, and I could see that we had some problems with things fusing together that weren't supposed to fuse together, and that's why I broke one of the two. We can also see it right here on the one of the carbon fiber. This one is working, but like we can hear trying to free up the pieces right over here, so I could free up the 0.5, the 0.4 and the 0.3. which I have right here in my hands, I broke them off because we have, like I said, some printer instabilities. So the reason I found it out is because we have a massive jam in the extruder, and funny enough we have a cover like this one that you can screw off and you can remove the jam. And when we take a closer look, you can see right over here is a piece of filament that is jammed right in. Now when I was trying to remove the nozzle because I thought I had a jam over here, I could see the following. This undercarriage is pretty loose. So we have two rods right over here and we have some bearings in the print head, and it looks like the bearing on the bottom one are completely loose and I can just wiggle them around. So first of all, I'm going to try and remove this piece of filament that is absolutely, jam-packed in there, and then we are going to remove the backside because I don't see any tensioning thingies to see if we can actually tighten this undercarriage. Time for a little update. I was able to remove the complete extruder. Apparently there is just a bolt right over here and a bolt right over here. In order to be able to unjam whatever the hell is in here, and you can see it right there, there is a huge piece of filament just stuck in there. You will have to open the screws in the back. Good news is that you don't have to be on the back of this board. There is a lot of stuff behind there, so it is fairly easy. I have removed the filament cutter, and when I removed the filament cutter I was actually able to remove this part. You can see that the extruder is partially metal, but we also have plastic gears. And then we have the one that is connected to the motor, which is partially plastic and metal. Then we also have the spring mechanism of this wheel. So this wheel is getting pushed by this spring. This is the tensioning system of the extruder. And there we have it. This was the piece that got stuck in the extruder. And like you can see, I was probably never going to be able to remove it. Now it's time to assemble it again. So I'm going to try and gently push this all back together so it shims nice and smoothly. Then we have the other wheel. I'm going to push it in like this, and this is going to connect to the motor. But first we have to put in this adapter plate, and now this is a nice tight sandwich. So you can see that the actual tensioning mechanism, you will not be able to reach it, and if you have a massive fuck up like I do, you will have to disassemble the complete extruder. And while we're at it, this is the filament cutter. So this is probably to enable you, instead of heating up the complete nozzle, that you can cut the filament, pull it out and straightly replace it with another piece of filament, which is what I did, which gave me that massive jam you have seen in the extruder. So I have to do more testing to see if this is going to happen again, or maybe some other YouTuber can do the same thing and maybe he has the same issue. But right now I am not very inclined to use this cutter again because it really screwed me over. Okay, another update. So we were able to mount everything back together. I was able to unscrew that screwed. So that one is going into the bin. We can see it right here, straight from the factory. That one was stripped. Now we have disassembled the complete carriage, and we can see we have a bearing down below and we have a bearing on top. Now it looks like they are using two kinds of bearings. They are using a ball bearing up top and they are using a graphite bearing down low. So when we remove this bearing, we can see they have tried to glue it in with a spot right over here and a spot right over here. They injected it from the back. They used something like a montage silicone or a montage paste, but they didn't fill the voids enough for this bearing not to rattle around like this. Now if we look at it from the back, we can see we have a hole right over here and we have a hole right over here, and these are the holes they have to fill with some kind of a glue for the bearings to stick. And you can see that this hole right here is as good as empty. So we can see that we are having a massive QC problem. I hope this is the only unit, but this is not just a review unit. This is a unit that you can purchase yourself, and I am the lucky one to receive one with a loose bearing. I'm really hoping that I'm the only one with a loose bearing, but right now it seems that they have to do some serious QC on the print head to see if all the bearings are properly glued in, because mine is not. So Qidi, if you're watching this, if this is something that the client of you is getting, then they are having a true nightmare trying to disassemble this whole system. It is actually pretty easy to disassemble it. You have to remove the daughter board at the back, remove all the connections, and then you can glue some more stuff in it. Now I'm going to try and fix it right now with a piece of foam, putting in a piece of foam to get some clamping force, just to help me get through the last testing I want to do, because believe it or not, in 12 hours I'm not even in the country anymore, and this video has to be edited and uploaded and all of that. So whew, let's go. Alright, I think I have fixed the problem. I have put a massive piece of foam behind it and we can actually see that the print head is now nice and stable and I'm actually moving the rod and not the carriage anymore. So I really hope they don't have a massive QC issue with stuff that is not properly glued in like the bearing. But know that if you're having a wobbly print head, then it is probably the glue that is not sufficient enough to hold in the bearing. Alright, so it looks like everything is mounted back together. We are not getting any errors, so time is of the essence and it's time to continue the testing. Alright, we have done some testing and it is now finishing up the last test we are going to do. This is the printer at full whack, which means that all the fans are turning full speed, so the things that you are going to hear right now is the loudest this printer will ever get. Which is actually pretty nice. This printer is pretty silent. It also seems that we have fixed the problem with putting some foam behind it and all of that. It looks like the print we are doing right now is looking absolutely perfect. So it is really good to see that when your bearings are properly glued in, this machine is working like it should. So this is one of the test pieces. This is a piece of TPU. We have a little color change right over here because we ran out of TPU, and we can see the instability right over here. There is a lot of stringing. So we could see that there was really a big problem with the print head at the moment we printed it. But this has been printed at 6mm cubed, so it is definitely able to print TPU 98A. Then we also have our PLA version. Everything is working perfectly. We can turn on every knob that there is, and we have one of the two thingies that is working. The other one is glued to some of the sides because of the print instabilities. It was actually just fusing on the walls. We can also see some instability right on that corner. So yeah, we could definitely see that there was a problem, but we can still free up the 0.5, the 0.4 and the 0.3. The rest is stuck, which is on par with the Q1 Pro. Then we also have an ABS one. The ABS one did actually pretty good. We have a great result and the bridging and all of that. Everything worked perfectly fine. All the wheels are turning. The only thing that we have is some very weak layers right here on the test results. It is all falling apart, and this was also an issue because of the print head instability. So this was one of the flow tests that I did. We went from 50 cubic millimeters to 35, and we can see on the results that we easily passed over the 30 mark. So we have a very capable extruder that is easily surpassing the 25 cubic millimeters. We also have done the testing with some fast PLA, and we can see that the results are not that good, but we still passed the 25 cubic millimeter part, which is well over 300 millimeters a second. We also printed this little fidget that was on the USB stick. It works perfectly fine. As you could see in the video, we did some paper calibration because one of the calibration options is to calibrate your platform, which means that we are not actually doing a mesh. We are just using the 4 knobs in the corners to level out the build plates in correlation to the nozzle, which we are using a piece of paper for. You will only have to do it once. We could see that this is a massive aluminum build plate, and this is one of the flattest aluminum build plates I have ever seen. I think we have a deviation of 0.16 millimeters or something like that, which is absolutely dead flat. I have build plates sitting around that are 0.6 millimeters off. So this build plate is one of the flattest build plates I have ever seen. Even the Qidi Q1 Pro is doing worse. Then another thing we could see is that this chamber is absolutely capable of heating up to 65 degrees Celsius. It is going to take about 50 minutes. And if you want to heat up the build plate to 120 degrees Celsius, you will have to take your sweet time, because this is a DC heated build plate. Let me tell you something, you are going to wait over 20 minutes for this thing to reach 120 degrees. And then we have the extruder. They are claiming that the extruder is capable of reaching 370 degrees, and while that is probably true, the limit is set at 360 degrees, so they are lying just a little bit. But when you are going to try the 360 degree mark, you are going to get errors that the thermistor is something wrong with it. It's not because it's something wrong with it, it's because you have passed the 360 degree mark. So when we put this nozzle at 350 degrees, we can see it is perfectly capable to hold it at 350 degrees. So they are lying about, let's say, 20 degrees. Then let's talk about the speeds. We can see this is absolutely no trouble, but we can also see in the input shaper that because of the massive print heads, we are losing a lot of acceleration, and I think the recommended acceleration was right around 8,000. You can also see that before you start the print head is going to the back and is going to do a little dance. It's going to move its nozzle over the rubber brush, and then it's going to move to the right where there is a little brass piece where it is going to cool down the nozzle, which is actually pretty neat. they are putting some kind of a metal that isn't going to wear the nozzle because the nozzle is hardened. It is just going to put it on there, seal it up, make the filament cool down so it doesn't ooze. Then it's going to wipe it one more time over that silicone brush, and then it can continue to print. So this is the last piece that I have actually printed, and we can see that the result is absolutely perfectly fine. There is a lot of detail, and I think this is probably the best print of the whole bunch we have sitting right over here. And this is what I was expecting from this printer, being more in line with the Qidi Q1 Pro. So I hope you can see it. We have absolutely zero issues with print quality right now after we fixed the loose bearing. And then one more thing is there is an actual poop chute in the back. So every time you are going to do a print, it is going to purge the nozzle. On the Q1 Pro, that waste was falling into a plastic bin. With this system, it is shooting it out of the back like a bamboo. And now we have a poop shooting machine, the Plus 4. And this right here is the amount of poop we have generated in the tests we have done for the complete review. This is going to be your poop chute, and this is all the waste material just laying around. Depending on who you ask, this is a good or a bad thing. You will have to put a bin behind the printer. This printer is more than 25 kilograms, so you are not going to move this thing to clean out your poops. So you will probably have to get something behind it that you can pull away to clean out your bin. Then we can see that this is a very silent setup. We can also see that the main board cooler is super silent. Nothing like the SV08, the screaming eagle of my whole setup. You can hardly hear noise out of the system. Like I said, this thing is actually sharing a lot of the bones from the Q1 Pro, but we can see that the extruder system is actually a little bit different. And I also think that the nozzle system is a bit different. We still get a bimetal nozzle, which means there is a hardened tip pushed in there so you can print every wear resistant filament that you want. I also said there was metal paneling. I was completely wrong. The magnets that were sticking on the plastic was because of the metal behind it. So we actually have a complete plastic outer shell, and on the inside we have a stamped steel chassis, just like the Q1 Pro. I also tested the filament runout sensor. It was working perfectly. I have tested the tangle sensor. It is working perfectly. But the things that aren't working is the updating. I have tried updating it. It is stuck at 33%. And because this printer isn't out yet, I cannot go to the interwebs, use the USB stick to do it that way. So there is already an update for the system, but I can't put it on the machine. Now we also tested the power loss recovery, and unfortunately that didn't work. It was complaining about something, but there is an update available. I was only not able to put it on the machine and see if the problems went away that way. Then we also have a carbon filter right on the back. Well, when you are printing ABS, you are not going to use that fan, and all your odors are going to creep around the corners, and your room is going to stink up like there is no tomorrow. So in my opinion, the carbon filters in the back are a bit of a gimmick. I would much prefer to leave them out and get the airflow when you are going to print PLA, and make sure that your room is properly ventilated. Then we could also see that in the printhead there is a filament cutter. Well, I used it once and the consequences were huge. I had to take everything apart because some filaments that I have cut just jammed up in there, and yeah, we had to disassemble the complete printhead. Now luckily removing the extruder was pretty easy. Once you know what to do, you have to take out the filament cutter, and then there are just two bolts and you can take everything out. Then one thing we can also see on the main board or on the board that is on the printhead, that all the steppers that you are using are all soldered in. So if you are going to have a bad stepper, that means that you will have to replace the complete board in the printhead and in the main board at the back. Also, the manual system seems to be working pretty well. It is a bit slow sometimes, especially when it's loading the thumbnails. Then it is pretty slow, but after that, and once it has done its complete cycle and it starts printing, you can start to adjust temperatures. You can do Z-stepping if you have to get closer or further away. I have seen that on my system. I have to put a negative Z offset of 0.03 to get the perfect squish, so it is very close to a perfect Z offset. Then something about the camera. The time-lapse absolutely works perfectly. I'm going to show you some right now. We can see that the quality of the picture is actually pretty nice. We can see a high detail in the camera, so this is a lot better than I have seen on for instance, the Creality K1 and the Sovel SV08. We can also see they have tackled the LED setup. On the Q1 Pro, it was only a little dinky thing like this. This time they have an LED strip almost the width of the complete front. Then the belts, we can see we have 9mm belts. They are not branded, just like the Q1 Pro. This doesn't have branded belts. Not sure if this is going to be an issue in the long term. The Q1 Pro is just holding up perfectly, also with unbranded belts. So yeah, take it as it is. Then the fit and finish of this printer is excellent. It is a lot better than the Q1 Pro. The door is very soft. Everything has some kind of a foam in order to make it shut without absolutely slamming the frame. And the overall fit and finish is just absolutely great. Then we have a spool holder right up there. I see nothing wrong with it. Not a big fan. I'm not using it. I am using this Polymaker poly dryer system that is just piped in, and you can set it on the side and you can easily swap it that way. But it is functional. And then about the speeds. This thing has been printed at 25 cubic millimeters, which is going to be plenty if you want to push 300 millimeters a second plus. So if you actually want a fast printer, this is very capable machine. The only thing that is going to hold you back are the lower accelerations. Then about the glass. So they ditched the polycarbonate that you can see in the Q1 Pro. This is a massive piece of glass. This is a massive piece of glass, and this is probably because this thing gets very hot. We could see that if you have the time, the bed is capable of 120 degrees and the chamber heater is perfectly fine at 65 degrees and the nozzle can reach 350 degrees without any problem. So this is going to make you capable of putting nearly every filament in the world, and that you can print PEEK. I think you can print PPS or something like that. These are filaments that need over 300 degrees Celsius, need print beds that go over 100 degrees Celsius. So this is capable to print any technical material that you want in one setup. You don't have to switch nozzles, you don't have to do anything. You just put in your spool, and this is an absolute dream of a printer. The only thing I can see is that TPU is on the slower side. It does still print TPU, but you have to make sure that you don't go over 6mm cube, or otherwise you are going to get under extrusion. So I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see when they come out with an AMS system next year, and to see if this is actually pretty well integrated and if we have a competitor to the Bamboo. This is only costing $799, probably 800 euros in Europe. So this is a massive deal. This is actually capable of printing everything that you want and with a sufficient build space. So like I said, we have a 305 by 305 by 280 build volume. It is a little bit smaller on the build height. I'm not sure why they did it and just added the other 3 centimeters, but you still have a massive build volume to do everything that you want. So if you're experiencing PLA issues, I didn't, but you might want to open a door or put something right over here so the hot air can escape. So in conclusion, if your system doesn't have loose bearings, this is a dream of a machine. It has everything that you ever wanted. Depending on who you ask, the bed is a lot safer with DC, while I prefer the AC beds. They heat up just so much faster. Because the chamber heater and the nozzle don't take a lot of time. Within 15 minutes you are printing, but you will be waiting for the heated bed. So this has been the first look of the Qidi X Plus 4. Apparently there has to be an X in front of it. Make sure to look up other reviews from other YouTubers, because my machine was a handful. I think I fixed every issue there is. The update function probably is going to be fixed in a later update, but if you have the version 1.0, then you probably are going to experience update issues. Then I want to thank you for watching, my subscribers, and especially these guys, the members of the channel. You can become a member for $1 a month and support future projects. If you're not interested, perfectly fine. Make sure to leave a thumbs up for the video, maybe subscribe to the channel. I would really like to get at the 10K mark. So that's it, the first look of the Qidi X Plus 4. I'm out of here.